I was doing a lot of analysis last week on some sample data that compares Salesforce opportunity data to what buyers actually say when we interview them. 65% of the time, the competitor field on an opportunity is wrong. So you're guiding your product market fit and your competitive advantage 65% of the time towards the wrong competitors. You're like, oh, competitor A is kicking our butt because the CRM says so. Your buyers are telling you it's a status quo, no decision, or it's competitor B. Like you're totally playing in the wrong sport right now.
All right, welcome to today's episode of the VidTao Podcast. This is VidTao co-founder Ian Naj, and today we're going to be talking to Mr. Trenton Romph. Trenton heads marketing at Clozd, Clozd. They are a venture-backed win-loss analysis software and service. There's so much that we covered on the call today around sales, understanding your market, tactics for actually digging in and understanding how you should pivot your company, your product offerings based on the feedback that you're getting from both your customers, but also your churned customers and customers who did not become customers, prospects who did not become customers, all by doing a specific type of outreach. And just a ton of value on this call, a lot of stuff to take away and implement, especially if you're an agency or have any kind of service component to what you do. But even apart from that, even if you have a strictly B2C business, I think you're going to get some great takeaways from this call and can't wait to share it with you. So let's dive in. This podcast is brought to you by VidTao.com. VidTao is our free YouTube ad library and spy tool, research tool. It's VidTao.com. At VidTao, we have close to 1 million unlisted YouTube video ads that you can search, find, discover how they're doing on a day-by-day basis. So you can really see what ads your competitors are running, see ads in different markets that you can model to create new winning ads for yourself, and a whole lot more. It's all there inside VidTao.com. Plus, we have a premium edition. So the database is free to access, but then we also have a premium edition where you have full unlimited access to the database. And inside there, we also provide training. So we also run an agency called Inceptly. That's INCEPTLY, Inceptly.com, where we've managed over $150 million on YouTube. It's a video traffic agency, and we've worked with everyone from brands like Descript.com, Huel, to real scrappy direct response, info products, supplements, health, beauty, e-commerce, you name it, we've done it, and love sharing what we've learned. Every week we drop new training in there, everything from YouTube ad media buying to running e-commerce creatives on YouTube to hardcore tracking and attribution tutorials to really level up your data science game for advertising, and everything in between. Right now, as we speak, we're working on a training regarding YouTube Shorts. Hopefully we'll be live by the time you hear this. On and on and on. This is our passion, is video advertising, and we want to share it with you inside of VidTao Premium. And actually right now, for a limited time, you can get access to VidTao Premium for a very special price. So if you go to VidTao.com, sign up for free, check out the database, upgrade to premium for this very special price. You'll get access to all of the database and all the trainings. And also wanted to add that at Inceptly, we do free brainstorm calls with clients like you. So if you ever want to get help or ask questions about your YouTube ads, your video traffic on other platforms, we're available to chat. Just go to inceptly.com/call, CALL, and set up a time to chat. It's free and would love to speak with you. Our team's waiting to speak with you. So without further ado, let's get into the show. All right, welcome everyone. You got Trenton Romph from Clozd. That's Clozd.com. And so Trenton, welcome to the VidTao Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ian. It's cool to be here.
Yeah. All right. So I gotta address the elephant in the room, which is so tell me where the company's based again.
We're based in Utah.
Okay, and Clozd, a sales-oriented company. So it seems like Utah is like what's the comparison I can make? Okay, and like in baseball, love
Sure.
baseball.
Yep.
So you have Dominican Republic, right? Just
Totally.
Insane per capita. The baseball culture is so strong there. So there's
Yeah.
just so many professional baseball players from the Dominican Republic. So I would argue that when it comes to sales, Utah is the Dominican Republic of sales.
That's amazing.
Care to comment on that?
I've never heard that metaphor before. I love that. That's amazing. Utah definitely has a strong, there's a strong culture of like getting through college, doing sales. There's a very strong cohort of the population that likes to evangelize things they believe in, and I think that tends to give them sales qualities. And then over time, the tech community in Utah has grown really fast, which there's really good jobs to be had on the sales side there. So I hope we start getting more and more of the reputation. I think in some circles you'd have it of brilliant product and engineering talent as well. So not just the sales side. I love my sales guys, but I want to hopefully we can broaden our horizons a little bit more than being just the Dominican Republic of baseball. So
I mean, that's a big deal. That's a big deal, by the way.
Yeah. And then the other thing that's been really interesting is that I've found a lot of people that exit really successfully out of Silicon Valley. A lot of them have picked up and placed roots in places like up in the mountains that are very cosmopolitan here in Utah. And that's brought a little bit of their network with them and a little bit more money with them to build other tech companies. And some of those are like phenomenal sales talent, like the one of the right-hand man of Mark Benioff at Salesforce, like one of their very first sales marketing chief customer officer guys lives up in this town called Heber. So he's kind of brought with him, a little bit of that network. So it's not just internal grown, it's a little bit of transplant talent as well.
Got it. You got both. It's a fantastic combination. So how did you start with Clozd? Like, how did we get here? What is Clozd, first of all? What is Clozd? How did you get here?
Yeah. So Clozd was started in 2017 by two guys that met at Qualtrics, which is one of the companies that everybody points to as far as like success of Utah's tech scene. And these guys were early Qualtrics employees trying to figure out for themselves what's driving wins and losses at Qualtrics. And they kind of explored the market, explored different solutions for how win-loss analysis is done and how do we really answer this question really well. And they kind of found at that time that the market was lacking a really, really solid solution that had a strong product side behind it as well to get you that answer of why you win and lose. So they both left Qualtrics at a time where Qualtrics was like on fire, was getting right before it was acquired by SAP for, I don't know the exact amount, but billions. And they made a bet on themselves and on this idea, left like a very cushy job and a very good equity positions in some cases to go to their basement and work on Clozd. And since then, it's just been a cool growth story, like profitable very early on, high growth very early on. And they've just made the right investments and started doubling down on product. So I joined Clozd 2 years ago after a startup I was in was murdered by COVID and just kind of wrecked during that time. So fell in with these guys, came in and interviewed, and just immediately fell in love with the idea and loved the thought of being behind the scenes and seeing why some of the greatest companies out there win and lose, and being able to dive into those stories and figure that out for my own personal growth. And I felt like it'd be a fun company to market. A lot of times in my career, I've been in companies where 85% of the time you're trying to figure out what the hell you're even marketing. And 15% of the time you're doing fun marketing. And here it feels like the total reverse. Like this, I get this. It's very common sense. It's very ROI value driven offer that we provide people. And so I felt like that'll be really fun. I'll spend 90% of my time doing cool marketing and talking to what I know versus, trying to become a software engineer and create content for software engineers on the side. So it's been great. It's been an awesome journey.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Cool. So talk me through the process. I'm just curious if you're okay talking about it.
Yeah.
Obviously upward trajectory is amazing right now. Just if you can talk about, because I think a lot of people are going to resonate with the challenges that the pandemic presented for companies. Are you comfortable talking about just what that process was like and what that experience was like?
Yeah. So the company I was at during 2020, we were very, very early stage. So I joined that company as first marketer, like employee 4, when we were at 40K ARR. So, it was barely even a company. It was more of a hobby for a few people. And we scaled it to nearly $1 million ARR in just a little under like a year and a half, I think. And then when the shutdown happened in March 2020, we saw like a very, very high rate of churn immediately during that week. And it really like crystallized hard that we didn't have a great product market fit. We were kind of a luxury add-on tool, not a almost irreplaceable core functionality tool. And so it became really easy for our customers to unplug us without that much of a damage to their operations. And the tool is a infrastructure monitoring. So anybody that's on AWS, they configure things poorly and you can have downtime and all of that. So this tool automates a lot of the alerting and lets you know beforehand, like you're going to have a problem. So a lot of it was, not having a solution that actually has a tangible ROI that is really a core business system that you need no matter what kind of turbulences are happening around you. And then not having that product market fit, like not knowing exactly what we were and how we provided that value really just exposed a lot of other problems that the company had. So we held on for a little bit. We had to lay off quite a bit of people. We tried to shift a little bit to like a product-led growth model that we've been trying for some time. And we got some of it to work, but just not fast enough. And then resources around investors and raising like a Series A kind of dried up as they shifted their portfolios to what are industries that COVID's accelerating, like virtual experiences, virtual events, content, like all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it just exacerbated problems in an early stage startup that were already there, but it could have scratched and clawed its way to some sort of a success without the acceleration of a problem like the pandemic. Clozd's experience was a lot different. So Clozd was profitable, like I said, very early on, and they were not aimed at growth at all costs. So this is like a very cool lesson that they learned in 2020 that some companies are learning right now, is doing growth at all costs, raising a ton of money at inflated or bubbled valuations looks amazing until you hit a bump in the road, right? Like a slowed economy or a tech recession or raising interest rates, whatever it is, like we're seeing right now. So during COVID, they weren't sure what was going to happen, but they didn't have to lay anyone off. They had money in the bank. They hadn't raised anything at that point, and they could accelerate into it actually. And instead of being afraid of it, they could figure out how do we navigate it. And those lessons have applied really, really well to last year. Like we saw kind of the same thing, Q2 of 2022, all of a sudden the tech community hits this bump, and a lot of our customers are software companies. So we weren't immune to it. Our win rate went down just like other companies. And the interesting thing was, because we did win-loss analysis so well, we had a very good basis in why are we winning and losing? Is it purely economy and we're doing everything else we can internally to shore that up? Or do we really actually have a bunch of problems and the economy is just making those problems worse? And it was clear to us it was the economy. So it gave confidence back to my team and the sales team and the rest of the company to just push harder. Like, hey, we know we don't win as much. That just means we need to shoot more. Like if I'm not making as many 3-pointers, I I need to shoot more baskets. I need to play better defense. I need to get the ball more often, right? Kind of a thing. So that's what we did. We just doubled down on what we knew would bring in more pipeline and created some marketing initiatives, like raised the amount of marketing we were doing, increased the team size, put more ad spend in, because we knew we just needed to put things into orbit. We needed more opportunities. We will lose less of them, but we're confident as soon as things kind of come back with strength, we have put enough into orbit that we'll accelerate right out of it again. So those are some cool lessons that I've seen, and the difference between a company that's growth at all costs, it doesn't really have product market fit, and is just forcing everything they can with dollars, versus strong product market fit, very strong stewardship around resources, and around, even when we raised money, it was still like, okay, let's be very strategic and not just burn for burning's sake, right? That's been a huge difference and a big learning experience for me. So it's been really cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. So really, you keep bringing up product market fit and how maybe the former company, just in its existing iteration, wasn't there yet. So just walk me through with Clozd, why is there such a strong product market fit? And in the process of doing so, I think just for listeners, just what is Clozd and what is it? What is the solution and solutions that it provides?
Yeah, so I apologize. I mean, it wasn't super clear about what is Clozd. So Clozd is a win-loss analysis platform and service offering. So we've built a SaaS platform where you can house all of your win-loss feedback. So every time you have a sales opportunity, that's won or lost, Clozd automatically triggers a feedback loop where we have a team that goes and interviews your buyer, and we tag those interviews into themes around product, pricing, marketing, sales experience, all the things you did right or wrong. And we pull all of that interview and tagging and insights into the Clozd platform. And then anyone in the company can log in. We have an unlimited user model. So anyone can log in and very quickly see over the last 100 interviews that we've done, plus survey data, why your company's winning and losing, what your strengths and weaknesses are. And you can correlate those directly with buyers' quotes and start to understand, okay, they're saying this about our sales experience, that our sales reps don't have empathy towards their problem. They're not understanding their world enough to solve and show them the value of what we provide. We need to double down on sales training. We need to make our reps more empathetic to these buyers. Or our brand reputation is very bad. Like, we keep having people ask their network, what do you think about this tool? And the networks always say, that's terrible. Like, I had a horrible experience, whatever it is, right? So we need to improve our reviews and our brand experience. And here's some things on the product side we can improve. So we fuel companies with this win-loss data to help them drive strategic changes in the company that actually impact directly their revenue and their ability to win more deals. And that's why Clozd has such great product market fit, because in my career, it's the most common sense, value-based thing I've ever marketed. It's a question that everyone's trying to figure out. How can I win more? What's causing us to lose? And we can easily show you that in a very, very shareable and actionable way. So it's been really fun to market something that drives so much value, and you're not trying to connect the dots between, like, well, we can save you on average 13 hours a week per employee. And that, like, it's not trying to connect these crazy dots around what's actually going to help you win more, right? So it's a great product. And it's also been really eye-opening to me to fuel, especially with our clients and our customers we work with, to fuel product market fit strategies around buyer feedback. I've seen so many different companies right now, in my past experience, make assumptions and guesses at what customers want, what buyers want, what's really driving them, what they think is valuable about your product, what really causes them to lose. And these guesses and assumptions tend to drive you away from, like, a pure product market fit and really figuring out what features, what things should we build for our buyers to drive this conversation around value. And most companies right now just do it in odd ways. Like, they'll go into the CRM and I don't know if your listeners use CRM. I am a little bit unplugged from like
Many
marketing
do.
agencies and they do.
Yeah.
So it's like Salesforce, HubSpot, and I see so many different operators, especially in the rev ops world and marketing ops and sales ops. They immediately go to Salesforce or CRM data to answer this question of like, well, why are we winning and losing and what's working and what's not working? And it's one of the first things agencies and other people do in an audit, like a strategic audit of what should we double down on, right? What channels are working for us? What ad creative is working for us? What messaging is working for us? Like what industry do I even sell to, right? And I was doing a lot of analysis last week on some sample data that compares Salesforce opportunity data to what buyers actually say when we interview them. So it's some of these interesting things that, like I'm telling you, exacerbate this product market fit problem is when you try to guide product market fit with the CRM data like this. So when I compared it, 65% of the time, the competitor field on an opportunity is wrong. So you're guiding your product market fit and your competitive advantage 65% of the time towards the wrong competitors. You're like, oh, competitor A is kicking our butt because the CRM says so. And no, your buyers are telling you it's a status quo, no decision, or it's competitor B. Like you're totally playing in the wrong sport right now, right? Another interesting one is so we looked at losses and we have what's called decision drivers. So when we go to an interview and we ask you, Ian, like, hey, why didn't you buy this company? And you say their product didn't have this feature and their price was like this and their marketing like didn't resonate, right? Those are three separate decision drivers. It's pricing, product, and marketing. So on average, on a lost deal, there's 2.8 of these negative decision drivers. So on average, 2.8 things caused the buyer to not buy. But in Salesforce, you put in the loss reason, there's only one. You only put in like some drop down, right? And when I compared them, 15% of the time, the loss reason in Salesforce matched any of the negative decision drivers, only 15% of the time. So if you're going to go in and try to figure out how do I get my product market fit to be better? How do I compete better? How do I win more? Which industries are working? How do we actually drive more revenue? And you're pulling it all from the CRM, you're going to find like 85% of the time that loss reason is just not even valuable at all. It's not the right reason. Or you see things like, we see this all the time. The loss reason in Salesforce isn't even a why. It's just an what. It's just an outcome. So it'll say like lost to competitor. That doesn't tell you a why. That's like saying, hey, why did you get divorced? And you answer, because I got divorced. Like it's not a why, it's an outcome, right? And what I found is 44% of the time in this sample set, the loss reason is only an outcome. That's literally like you're a marriage therapist and 44% of your clients, when you ask, well, why do you think you got divorced? And they answer, because I got divorced. Like, how the heck are you going to help those people? Right. And that's what I'm seeing in Salesforce. So that's why Clozd has been able to capture market really quickly. It's been able to actually help customers drive more revenue and make really quality strategic changes because we're doing it in a different way. We're actually asking buyers to fuel the insights, asking buyers what their experiences look like instead of going to a CRM spreadsheet every single time and ignoring the fact that your data is bad.
Wow, that's amazing. I think on two fronts, really. The fact that you're empowering just better sales and marketing, and you're empowering the product decisions, those big strategic decisions, by actually talking to the market. So It makes, it's just common sense, right? But it's how often do we not really follow ignored. Common sense? Exactly.
It's been ignored. And it hasn't been easy to do. And it still isn't. Like if you are trying to sell to someone and they go dark on you, the likelihood of you sending an email and being like, hey, what happened? Like, why did you stop responding? Why didn't you go with us? The likelihood of them answering in any sort of meaningful way is really, really low. Mm-hmm. It increases dramatically when you send somebody else out to them and say, hey, I'd love to get your feedback on this. It's the same as like when you were dating or whatever, or even in the divorce example, right? If you were dating someone and they break up with you, they'll give you lines like, it's not it's not you, it's me, or like that's similar to like it was budget or I couldn't get budget. It's not you, it's me, right? And then when you actually talk to their best friend who talked to them about it and the best friend's open with you, it's like, well, they hated the way you were so cheap, or they didn't love like the fact that you played video games all day, or whatever reason it was, right? And they sometimes they're honest with you, but a lot of buyers don't feel the obligation to help sellers understand why they didn't move on. Like they're busy, and it's not like a nefarious reason. They're just busy. They're trying to own their own world. They're trying to be successful in their own way. So they just aren't going to take the time to fully explain to you. And even if they took the time, there's a good chance they're going to just be a nice person and not tell you the bad things you did, right? So you'll be a sales rep and you'll think, oh, it was pricing or product. But in reality, they're sitting there like, you were the worst salesperson I've ever had. And they won't often say that to people, to sales reps, to their face. So yeah, so it's just been hard and ignored. And really it's been ignored because the way people have thought about win-loss analysis has been wrong. They've thought, well, let's go do a win-loss analysis. Let's go into this CRM and pull all the loss reasons. And as soon as they do that, they're seeing this horrible data that I've just told you about, where it's like 55% of the time it says lost to competitor. And then they're sitting there in a spreadsheet wondering, okay, if 55% of the time I lost to competitor, what do I even do with that? Or it may say something like pricing. Great. What are you going to do with a one-word answer that says pricing? Are you just going to offer 50% off like coupon codes? What is it about pricing? Is it your terms are bad? Your contracts are too long, your negotiation process is too difficult, you package the product. Like there's so much nuance to pricing, right? That doing it as a CRM poll like that actually doesn't affect strategy at all. So people have done that for years and years and years, and now they've just realized or thought win-loss analysis doesn't provide any value to me. It's just some research project we do every now and then to check a box. But I've never seen any ROI-driven impact from it, so we ignore it. We don't do it. Right. And that's where it's gone. So we're changing that and driving it more from the buyer feedback side with these interviews. And then there's some cool things we're going to build on the product side to help full cycle and in live deals in the CRM help actually drive revenue in the moment instead of this kind of retroactive look at what went wrong. Yeah. I feel like I keep rambling off and off, keep going on and on your questions. So if you're like, hey man, you're going too far on these, just let me know.
No, I mean, it's gold really. And it just keeps hammering home the point that you really need to talk to people, but sometimes, like you're saying, you can't be that same entity or that person who initiated a conversation. You need to get that sort of third party objective, subjective feedback, right? Yeah. To really understand this. And it's crazy how Clozd has been built on that data and being able to source that data. So I don't know what you can share, but I'm actually super interested in how do you get people to talk, because I mean, we're in sales, like we have people ghost all the time, and you send like 20 follow-up emails over the course of 6 months, nothing, right? So how do you actually do you actually get people to open up? I'm just really curious about that.
Yeah. And if you are trying to do this on your own, there's a few tips that can help. Like the first thing is try to get someone in the company that isn't going to give the customer or the buyer the fear that they're just trying to sell me again. A lot of times people don't want to respond because they just think you're getting feedback to overcome objections, right? It's like when you break up with someone and you keep asking them, can we just go to dinner so you can tell me why? And they're sitting there like, well, I already told you why, kind of, or I already gave you a reason. I don't want to go back to dinner and you try to win me over again. Like that's not what I want, right? So if you can come from an approach that's maybe somebody else in the company and they tweak maybe their title or something where it's like marketing research or something like that, that's going to be already more of an open door than, hey, I'm the salesperson and I want to know what I did, what we did wrong or right. So that's one thing. The other piece of it is a lot of times it just like any sort of opportunity that you're trying to drive as a cold caller or an SDR, as a salesperson, it takes a lot of persistence. Like you can't send off one survey, one email and expect to get a high response rate. So we have a whole team dedicated to like email cadences, trying to get interviews, phone calls, trying to get people on the phone. Like there's a whole team that does this, and that's their entire job focus. So if you're like, oh, I'm just going to do a one and done survey to customers that left or buyers that didn't buy, you're not going to get a very strong response out of that. So you need to be more persistent, but come at it from the angle of, I'm not trying to resell you. I'm not trying to overcome objections. I'm just candidly want to hear your feedback. Those things will help. And that's just one part of the problem. One is the like getting people on the phone to get the feedback. What I've seen a lot of people do, and what I've done in my career previously, is even when I get them on the phone, I just have like a Evernote up or a Google Doc or even like a pad of paper, right? And I'm sitting there writing handwritten notes about what went wrong. So it's already challenging enough to get someone on the phone. The other challenge becomes, how do you actually interview them where you get quality insights? Because I've seen a lot of people do the interviews so poorly. At the end of the interview, they're sitting there like, man, I still don't even know why we won or lost that deal. But I talked to them for 30 minutes, right? They're just bad at that interview that's purely based on understanding what happened in the sales process. And then once they've been able to do that, it also becomes challenging to take your notebook, your handwritten notes, and turn them into anything that you can share. And you see this all the time with salespeople. They will sometimes get feedback, or they'll hear, oh, it's because we didn't have this product feature. And they'll walk over to a product manager, or they'll Slack them and be like, we really need this feature built, right? And the product person is like, okay, this was one deal. That's always the answer. This was one deal. You don't have enough data. You don't really know. I know the customer better than you. I know the product better than you. I know the market better than you. I don't believe you, salesperson, right? If you can just open up this world to them where they can log in themselves and view 50 people said this product needs this feature, that's game changing. You're not this pesky sales rep trying to convince product to build what you think should be built anymore. You're just showing them, hey, here's what the buyers are saying. So there's a lot of obstacles around it. But that's where I would start is don't come at it from a sales rep perspective. Like try to come out of it a little bit more. We're open. This is just a feedback research type project. Be persistent, and then structure your interviews in a way where you can actually categorize the feedback. And by that, I don't mean a script. Don't go into the interview and do this. This is the worst. On a scale of 1 to 10, how did pricing impact you? 10. Oh, okay, cool. On a scale of 1 to 10, how did the sales experience impact you? You're like, no, they said 10 on pricing. That was huge. Focus in on pricing. Like it should be more conversational. But if you need a structured approach, and we do this with these decision drivers, where you have categories that you then, after the interview, you pull these things into categories, and then you can start to score those, right? And then you need to come up with a really good way to just share this data, whether that's sharing the videos themselves, sharing, I don't know what it is. The best solution I've seen is Clozd, but I don't want to be too biased about it. So, so there's a lot of ways to do it, but those are some of the tips I'd give to people that are like, man, I need to talk to buyers more, and how do I get it done without going and hiring Clozd to do it? That's where I'd start.
Interesting. So does Clozd do churn analysis too?
Yeah, so we do a couple of different things. So we do win-loss analysis, we do churn analysis when a customer's left, and then we also do what I like to call stay interviews, or people call them CSAT sometimes, but I like the word stay, where we'll interview, like on an annual contract, we'll interview your customers at 6 months, and we'll just ask them, be very open with us, what are the things they're doing right and wrong? And the companies that are using these the best, they'll take those transcripts and those categories, and they'll create action plans for each customer. Like, hey, you said in this interview with Clozd that we're doing these 4 things wrong. Here's 4 things we're going to do to help you with those and make your experience better. One of our customers that's done this really well, they've literally seen their churn go down to near zero. They haven't had these stay customers churn. So that's been like really, really cool. And they're doing full cycle now. So they do the win-loss on wins and losses, then they do the stay, and then they were doing churn when these customers churned. But we've obviously been able to reduce that for them. So yeah, it's right now it's those 3 buckets, but the primary focus is win-loss for sure.
Nice. That's really interesting. I mean, the value of the product is super clear. And I imagine you have so much data, you can probably do some benchmarking across industries?
Yeah, we're working on that right now, which is something I'm really excited about. So right now, if you were doing a win-loss analysis project with us, you would see something like, so we score these decision drivers from -2, that it was a strong negative, to +2, that it was a strong positive. And so sometimes we'll send over, hey, on this decision driver, you're scoring a 0.25 on average. And customers will be like, oh, we're positive. That's great. We're not a negative on this decision driver. And what we're working on is a benchmarking tool that would show you, yeah, but the industry average for that decision driver is 1.5. So even though you look positive, you're actually lagging behind. You're very, very negative right now. So that's been fascinating to pull together. It's not productized quite yet, getting there very soon. But I've been looking at some of that data just on my own, which has been a really fascinating experience. Like, on average, what is the typical score for like UX is one that I was looking at last week, and it's 0.25 is exactly where UX stands. The user interface, the user experience, that's been really interesting to pull through. Like, how often do people rank the user experience? Is about 10% of the time they'll bring that up in the interview. And then the average score is 0.25. So if you're sitting there as a product person or even a leader of your company and you're saying things like, our product's good enough, it's actually probably not. Like, if you're just status quo and you're a neutral, you're already behind the industry average of the 0.25. So yeah, stuff like that's going to be really fun for us to explore.
That's awesome. I'm curious. So if you could pivot a little bit and talk about, how you're actually getting this solution in front of people, how you're going about creating demand, and then, nurturing people and getting them to actually try out Clozd.
Yeah. So Clozd, like I said before, its DNA has always been efficient growth and a high level of stewardship over budgets and time. So when I joined the company, it was like 25-ish employees. I was the first marketer, and right out of the gate, it was like, let's not hire a big team. Let's just do the core things. So I had to really focus in and figure out what are the most important things I could do right now that can drive growth efficiently, right? So the early days, most of my priorities were around brand strength and reputation and capturing bottom of the funnel demand. So not a lot of creating demand. It did happen, but it was kind of a halo effect of doing these other things. What I really focused on was, I want to make sure that anyone researching win-loss analysis right now sees Clozd as a leader in the space. So I know a lot of companies, when you start as the marketer and you think of something like SEO, you're initially thinking like, what are all the buyer persona related keywords that have tons of volume that I could just rank for really fast with like semi-okay content and just get a ton of traffic to my website. And that's like your whole goal is website traffic. And then you play the game of like, well, I think I can convert 1% of that, but you really have no idea. You're just playing this numbers volume game. So I approached SEO differently. It was, what are the 2 or 3 keywords that will set us up as leaders in this space? And I don't care if there's only 200 searches a month for that keyword. I wanted to establish authority to those 200 searches, right? So that was the SEO focus, is let's do it all powered around positioning the brand to a place of strength, and less around like, let's just get a massive amount of website traffic and try to turn that into leads and kick those over to sales. Like, that wasn't my game at all. Actually didn't even, for the first few months, I would track how many leads I bring in, but it was not one of my core KPIs. I didn't really care that much. I cared more about win rate and brand strength, right? Which was cool, because then in win-loss analysis, I could track that. I could see, how are we scoring on brand strength and reputation, and what is the market and my buyer's perspective of our position in that, right? So that was one of the first things we did. And then it was also, let's find the communities that care the most about this subject, and let's find the events that they go to and start teaching and being at these events, not in a throw a booth in a sea of booths strategy, which I don't agree with at all, but more, can I go to these events and teach or present? If I can't, I don't even want to be there. Like, there's no point in me just throwing a logo up or a booth up. And then it was capturing bottom of the funnel demand with like Google ads, paid search ads, things like that. And then a lot of it was just, let's make the brand experience better. Let's do better design. Let's do better website experience. Let's do better customer marketing experiences, all those types of things. So those were the initial strategies, and it worked. And it scaled us to a point where we were able to raise a very healthy Series A last year, because we were able to grow on the demand that existed. And in that same strategy, it was cool because we started to see the category creation and the demand increase, the creation of the demand like increase. When I first started, I think average monthly search volume for win-loss analysis specifically was like 150 a month. Now it's close to 500. So it's been, we've just been, by doing those things, we've been able to change the conversation around it and get enough people thinking about it that it's created demand. Has it created enough demand to grow at the rate we would want to grow as now a VC-backed company? No, we still have a lot of room to go there. So now we're in this world of we got to create a massive amount of demand and change the narrative, change the way people think about it, start creeping into other buyer personas instead of being bucketed into the kind of this niche competitive intelligence or product marketing side of the world, right? How do we get CROs to care? How do we get CEOs to care? How do we get CMOs for that matter to care? All that, right? So that's the world we're playing in today, and it's a mix. There's still a lot of the strategies around events, capturing demand, but we've increased our content volume dramatically. We're trying to do as much earned media, so stuff like podcasts like this. Can we get as many internal thought leaders on as many different podcasts and webinars and events as possible? So there's a person on my team who's kind of like an SDR, and their whole job is, can you book meetings for content? Can you book like our thought leaders on podcasts and on webinars and just drive this kind of earned media push, right? So it's a lot of stuff like that, and trying to navigate a little bit how is SEO changing and blogs changing in the face of like tools, automation tools like Chat GPT and 3 and all that kind of stuff has been really kind of a fun game actually. But I always come back to, I drive all of our strategies around what our buyers are telling us from our win-loss programs. And that's been a really fascinating experience, because in previous companies, what I've done, and I'm sure everybody listening to this that's ever run marketing or tried doing marketing campaigns and tried to measure them has done this game too, where it's kind of the same thing as the Salesforce stuff I was talking about before, where your sales rep is putting in what they think happened on a deal. We also have that problem with marketing attribution that everybody talks about, right? So there's been the shift now to ask buyers on forums, where did you hear about us, right? And that's a really good shift. Like, you're getting more of the buyer's feedback. You're not so exposed to the drawbacks of digital attribution and digital tracking. I talk about this all the time. Marketers are so obsessed with touch points, and they assume because a touch point happened and a deal was closed that touch point was positive. I've had experiences with direct mail personally. I share this example all the time. Like, what if you sent a direct mail chocolates campaign and this person's dog ate the chocolates and got really sick? They hate your direct mail campaign. They may end up closing just because your product is so good. And they'll probably say in the win-loss interview, like, man, they hurt my dog with chocolates, but begrudgingly, I had to get their product because it's so good. So then you look in the CRM and you're like, man, chocolate direct mail campaign is amazing. It closed this deal. But then the buyer's like, no, I hate your guts. I hated the freaking chocolate campaign, right? So we get so obsessed as marketers on these touch points, and we assume they're all positive. We assume because they saw an ad or they saw a campaign or a landing page or whatever that it was a positive experience. It's crazy. It's crazy to assume that, right? So what I've tried to do is layer on the buyer interview that we do internally with win-loss onto the digital attribution, as well as what my sales reps think were the attribution. And that's been eye-opening, because one, it's told me a different story about where they come from, but it's told me an even deeper story about what actually drove them to like us and buy from us. It's one thing on a forum to say, I heard about you on a podcast, or I saw you at an event, or I saw you on LinkedIn. It's a totally different experience for them to call out in the interview exactly what you said on that podcast that made them think they should buy this. Or I talk about this with events all the time. we go to an event or we host an event, and in Salesforce, that event would never get any attribution towards the opportunity. And then when we do the win-loss analysis review, that buyer will tell us, because you did that event, you were the only vendor I looked at. So yeah, they didn't hear about us from the event, but they looked at it. And because we did that positioning game, we knocked out the competition before they even bought. So it's taught me to not get blinded by touch points, by attribution that's already bad data, and everyone knows it is anyway. It's helped guide me towards what actually motivates buyers, right? And if this event doesn't turn into a ton of opportunities because my attribution modeling can't show that, but I have a bunch of buyers telling me this is the only thing, like, that cut out all your competition, of course I'm going to keep doing that event. And the ROI of that event completely changed. It's no longer a dollar to one ops ROI calculation. It's how impactful was that event to this one deal. And that's a totally different way to calculate ROI that marketers are ignoring. So I would challenge marketers to think about that too. Like, this isn't just a sales, how do we win more? How do we get better products, features? How do we get sales experiences better? But win-loss can actually change the way you think about your marketing mix and how you place your bets. It can increase your confidence in your marketing when your exec team is saying, man, you did that event and it cost you $100,000 and there were only 5 ops, 10 ops that came from it, and only one of those closed. There was no strong ROI on this event. But then you can pull out of 20 different interviews, all of them mention that event. That's totally game changing. And then you have way more ammo and confidence to do marketing the right way. So that's been really cool here.
Yeah, I mean, what's super interesting is that talking about attribution and we've leaned on these touch points because they're kind of the only thing that's quantifiable, right? Totally. Historically, that's what it's been. And then now with everything that's happening in AI, machine learning, et cetera, and I know it's what you're doing at Clozd, is you're able to take this sort of subjective feedback and then you're able to like grab all of it and put it in a framework or a context where you can see like quantifiably what's being said, these points that keep getting hit upon. So you're opening up to being able to see all the data from all these conversations in one place, which I think is unbelievable, and it's the future, really. So yeah, it's fantastic. I wanted to ask you one question, circling back to, you mentioned it a few times, just in terms of brand strength. So coming in and really focusing on brand strength, how would you advise people what are some strategic and tactical ways of approaching brand strength, improving brand strength, and assessing, how that's going?
Yeah. Buyers right now, one of the first places they go to when they're making a decision is their community. And then as biased or tricky or manipulative as some review sites can get, they still go to review sites. So keep those things in mind. Like I had one experience as an early marketer in my career where when G2 Crowd was just kind of starting and I was tasked with like build this thing up and get it going. And I knew it was like a good thing. I was getting reviews and we were getting a presence on there. Of course, that's not a bad thing, but it was hard to justify like how much time should I spend on this? How much is it really lifting? All those kinds of things. Like I said before, if you can gauge where your buyers go to get that data, like what communities, what review sites are they going that are actually influencing deals, then you can start to measure that a little bit better. Like if you interview 100 of your buyers and half of them say it was the Google reviews or it was whatever that really sold me, or I went to this community on Slack and asked what they think about you and a bunch of people said you were great, like you already know, okay, I can focus in on that community or I can focus in on this review site specifically and juice it and bump it and get my positioning better in that area, right? So that's a big one, is how do you, like, brand strength really comes a lot of times from word of mouth. It's from people's friends saying that you're awesome or not. If you're not awesome, you already have a bad start there, right? Like if you don't have a great product and you're not awesome, that's going to be a tough game. So make sure you're awesome, and then figure out which communities do your buyers talk about you in, which review sites do they frequent, which ones do they trust. And then there's a lot of strategy. There's a lot of effort that you should put into, we call it social proof. But it's different than like, okay, here's social proof of a logo strip on my website. Like that's a lot of times when we say social proof as marketers, we immediately go to the logo strip on a landing page, or we think of a case study. And in my experience, case studies have always been like, you go to a website and the case study says something like, Google experienced blah, blah, blah with our company, right? And they try to like use that company's logo as this was why you should trust this. This is why you should look at it, is this logo is such a big logo. Most smart buyers, if you say stuff like Google bought us or Microsoft bought us, they're like, yeah, they freaking buy everyone. Like that doesn't mean anything, especially as a marketing agency. I see this all the time. They're like, we've done work with Coke, we've done work with Salesforce, we've done work with Google. And I'm like, every marketing agency I've ever come across has done work with those companies. Like they're huge, right? Mm-hmm. It's a lot different to do it that way versus like, what was the problem you actually solved? And changing the narrative. Maybe it's like, here's how my agency increased made ROAS increase, right? And it's not we increased a ROAS with Google. It's a case study with like 6 different clients that all of them are talking about how your agency increased ROAS for them, right? That's way cooler. That's a way better way to establish the brand strength than a case study. It's like Google used us and Salesforce used us. Like, who cares? They use every marketing agency on the planet almost, right? Mm. So I would think about case studies a little bit differently and dive into communities a little bit more and figure out how to get people to talk about you. And then the other thing that's been really strong for us is if you're talking to your buyers enough, it's really easy to identify the ones that love you and are willing to talk about you to anybody, and get those people on calls. Like use those people as a immediate brand strength positioning play when you're in the sales process, right? So yeah, this person's going to go to their community and talk, but you're bringing that community right to them. Like, hey, I know you're looking for other CMOs' opinions about what they think about us. So I have this call scheduled with you and 2 other CMOs that have worked with me in the past, and they just want to share what they think about me, what they think about the company, what they think about whatever we're doing, right? That's powerful. Like you bring that community right to them. And then people like to connect. Like you can offer it up. If you don't move with me, these are cool people to connect with anyway. They can help you with your other challenges, and you're already providing a value that's also increasing like your reputation and your brand strength and those kinds of things. That's how I'd approach brand strength. I think about brand strength less about how many people know about us, how cool is our design look, and more about just calling it your reputation. Like if your company is a person, what are people going to say about you? And find the people that are saying the best things about you and amplify that and turn it into great stories and pull them into opportunities to tell people that you're awesome. That's what I would do. Fantastic.
Well, Trenton, man, so much knowledge dropped here on pretty much every front. So really appreciate everything you shared. I want to make sure that people are aware of where they can get in touch with you and also get in touch with Clozd and learn more about Clozd.
Totally. I frequent LinkedIn the most. I'm pretty open on there. Like I connect maybe for bad. I used to be an SDR. That was my first job in tech, was cold calling. So I have a little more empathy for people trying to connect, and so I just kind of connect. So LinkedIn's a great place to reach out, connect with me, to chat with me, whatever. And then I hate just throwing people to our general website, but I don't have a great offer to send right now. So Clozd.com is the best place to check out Clozd for sure.
Awesome. Well, Trenton, thank you so much for being on the call. And thanks for sharing all your knowledge. And I think people are going to love to learn more about Clozd and dive into see how this stuff can help.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, Ian. It was fun to talk about it.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode of VidTao Podcast. Again, my name is Ian Naj, co-founder of VidTao, and really appreciate you having a listen. And it means a lot. So if you have any feedback, go ahead and email us at info@vidtao.com. Love to hear your ideas for future shows, future guests. If you want to be a guest, let us know. Love to chat. Also, just as a reminder, this show has been sponsored by VidTao, which is our free YouTube ad library. VidTao.com. Again, you can go to VidTao and look up over 1 million ads at this point inside of VidTao. They're all unlisted YouTube ads. You can see what your competitors are running, track the results on a day-by-day basis, find new ads inside of our YouTube ad library, VidTao. And we also have a premium edition of VidTao. So the library is free to access, but for full unlimited access to the library, we have a premium edition of VidTao. We also have training from our inceply.com agency, which is our sister company to VidTao, where we've managed over $150 million on YouTube. We provide training on media buying, creatives, tracking, copywriting, everything in between. It's all there inside of VidTao Premium. And right now we're running a very special deal on VidTao Premium. And you can go claim that right now at vidtao.com. When you sign up for free, you'll see the offer to join Premium and go there and check that out. And last thing, we also do free brainstorm calls with our agency Inceply. Go to inceply.com/call. And we love brainstorming with you on your video advertising and just marketing in general. Love to chat. So inceply.com/call, CALL. Would love to speak with you. So thanks again for joining us and looking forward to the next show. In the meantime, have a great week.